texting us about the link. But welcome.
Thank you very much for coming along.
Ross is going to kick this off. I'll be able to keep letting people in, and then we'll talk to you a little bit about what we're doing, why we're doing it, the content of today's webinar, and then obviously you get a little bit of a Q&A at the end. If we've got, well, we're going to try and get a chunk of like 10 minutes to chat things through at the end if you've got any questions.
Sounds good. Right, well, we'll just get into it, and then anyone who joins, let them in. Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming along, guys. This is something, like, this is the first time that me and Bailey have done something along these lines. So bear with us. This is very exciting for the both of us, and we appreciate you all showing as much interest as you have in coming along and getting stuck in. Today's agenda. So first things first, we're going to have a wee intro into who me and Bailey are, who we are, what we do, why we do what we do, that kind of thing. A wee intro into nutrition in terms of what a calorie is, what macros are, that kind of thing, and then get stuck into the nitty-gritty of understanding. Like, there's several different hormones in the body, but we're going to sort of numb it down to 5 main ones. And then the menstrual cycle on top of that. Understanding any kind of hormonal balances that come along with that. Again, we're going to talk about 5 main ones, one of which is not an imbalance as such, but it's something that all women are going to experience at some point, so it makes logical sense to talk about it. Nutritional strategies for said hormonal imbalances, female training considerations, female diet considerations, actionable advice if you're struggling to lose weight or just manage your weight in general, and maybe you have consistent poor energy, and kind of what you should be looking at within your lifestyle, etc., your environment, to action that. And then a wee Q&A at the end as well, where you can pick our brain, bombard us with any kind of questions you might have. Yeah, and we'll wrap things up with that. So that leads us on to nutrition.
Perfect. Right, a little bit about us. Is this in the way? We'll move this. So Ross and I actually went to school together, which is going back 11, 12 years ago. And we were definitely very different people at school. I started off my whole career, I was a professional dancer before I went into the fitness industry. And I would say at school, I was going through that really difficult time where, I'm completely honest, I went through a bit of an eating disorder throughout pretty much my teens through to being in my 3rd year at dance school, and then into the industry as well, without even really realizing that that's what, because the industry kind of, it's almost you're almost expected to be the smallest version of yourself. So I just always thought throughout my career I was being dedicated to my craft and what I was doing. So through that, I made a hell of a lot of mistakes in my nutrition, in my diet, in my training. And I was very, very, I was tiny at school. So I was so unknowledgeable as well in any of this, which is why it's led me to be extremely passionate about my clients and the women that I train, so that they don't make the same mistakes as me, or they understand their cycles, their nutrition, their tracking, their training a lot more than I ever did. And just to help, because I think that there's a hell of a lot of coaches and PTs out there that don't know about the difference between training male and female, or the menstrual cycle, or hormonal imbalances, or just nutrition to support females. So this is why I've become really passionate about it, going from a dancer into the fitness world. But yeah, at school, Ross, so that wasn't really our area of expertise, or what we kind of went into training or doing at school. But yeah, let you.
Yes. So yeah, we had polar opposite sort of kind of experiences back then. For anyone that I've not met, by the way, my name's Ross. Back in school, up until like my late teens, my nickname was Fat Ross.
Fat Ross.
Whoever came up with that, like, creative as fuck. Basically, I was a heavily overweight kid. I struggled with my weight, self-confidence, body image up until like my 20s. My relationship with food was very, very poor. And when I got to like the age of 18, in between the ages like 18 to 23, I kind of replaced food with drugs and alcohol. And then that was kind of my life for that period. And then from the ages of like 23 till now, I kind of just went full gym bro mode and have become a very wholesome, boring person. But when I first started getting myself in shape, I had people coming to me basically asking for advice. And when I started getting them in shape as well, I was like, oh, it'd be really cool if I could make this a profession. And finally, I just started becoming I got my qualification in personal training, became a PT, and then COVID happened. So I just started coaching people during lockdown for free just to get a bit of experience. I am the oldest male in my family. I've been surrounded by women like my whole life. I was brought up by women, I was raised by women. So I've always kind of been surrounded by all of the things that we're going to be talking about, just never had a clue what was going on. And my first ever PT client was a woman who was menopausal. So I've always been exposed to hormones, hormonal imbalances, etc. And I got to a point where I just felt there was a certain responsibility on my part to start talking about or start learning about all of this. My little sister has had health complications growing up as well. So I just felt like there was a certain responsibility to start learning about it. And the more that I did, weirdly enough, the more passionate and interested I became in all of it. And it's just gone to a point where I work pretty much just with women now who are focused on physique development, but also how to utilize nutrition, training, exercise, lifestyle to help with the symptoms and experiences of these imbalances. And here we are.
Right, so we're gonna briefly talk about an intro to nutrition, because recently, actually, after bringing up this webinar, I've been having like open conversations with people about calories, macros, hormonal imbalances, and what macros you should be having. And people were actually not really sure what a macro, a micro, and calories kind of were. So we're going to do like a brief, if you've heard this before, obviously it's just re-educating, but yeah, we'll go through the basics. So a calorie is a unit used to calculate the amount of energy that we take in from our food and our drink. That is then broken down into, what's going on? That is then broken down into macros and micros. So our macros are our three main food groups: our carbs, our proteins, and our fats. We need all three of them in order to for our bodily functions and our hormones to be regulated. We cannot remove a single one of those macros. And I think, especially as women, we've had carbs and fats definitely demonized as in diet culture, especially in like the 80s, 90s, going into the 2000s. There was some absolutely mental fad diets. The egg and wine diet. I think there was a Special K diet. There's been a pineapple diet. At my dance school, we were put on soup diets, fish diets, and we're going to go through how important each macro is to support women in general, and then also what they are specifically. So a carb is the main energy source for our brain and our muscles. They are split into two sections: complex carbs and simple carbs. Now, carbs get a bad rep, but what we want to look at as females is using them for energy, but picking the correct ones. So a complex carb is a carb that is made up of a single long chain of sugar molecules. So they are our starchy carbs, and they are slower to digest. So this is what we need for our energy. Slow digesting carbs mean that throughout the morning, if you were to have some kind of rye bread or something starchy, you're going to have slow release oats, slow release energy throughout the morning, and you're not going to be as hungry as quickly. Our simple carbs, our simple sugars, are the ones that are going to send you up and then back down in a crash. So there are things like our white bread, biscuits, cereal bars, things that like we might pick up in the morning and think, oh, this is great, this is handy. But actually your energy is gonna go up, you're gonna crash, your blood sugar the same. So we want to kind of avoid them. And they're the ones that are going to make you gain the weight. It is not the complex carbs. We need to keep them in our diet. If we were to take carbs out, you would quite quickly notice the difference in your brain function and your energy. So carbs are great. Protein. Protein is the building blocks of our cells, of our muscles, of our hormones as well. We need them for like, they are so important when it comes to our training. There's quite often a myth that protein makes you bulky. And I think this is another open conversation I had with a client the other day, where if we were to make you all track your calories, your macros, and your food, everything that you were putting in your mouth for 2 weeks, and you were to come back to us, probably 7 out of 10 people would be under eating their protein. Either scared to eat too much because they're going to bulk up, like gym bros, or just not really sure how to get it in, or that they're not getting it in. We need protein when we train because our muscles, they tear down. We get micro tears in our muscles when we train. So in order to build them back up, we need the amino acids from protein to repair, restore, and to grow lean muscle mass. So this is like hugely important. We find it in meat, poultry, fish, eggs, plant-based as well. If you're vegan or vegetarian, you can get it from tofu, quinoa. Really, really important to make sure that we are incorporating our protein into our diet and trying to get it in every meal as well. I think we quite often would start the day with a carb, but women, we want to start the day with protein and healthy fats, which I'll go on to explain in a second. Yeah, we also need protein for enzyme production, metabolism, growth, our hormones being regulated, and also keeping our immune system tip-top. Fats. Now, fats are broken down into 4 categories, 4 different types of fats, and they're also demonized. I made this mistake, definitely, until even recently, last couple of years, thinking, God, fats have got really high calorie content. I must avoid them. But fats, you think the word fat, you think you're going to get fat, and it's just so not the case. There's 2 to avoid, and there's 2 to really look out for. So our hormones, we love them. Our female, they regulate our hormones. We need them to support our general health as females, but we want to, in moderation, if not really look to cut down the saturated fats and trans fats. So these are found in animal-based products, butter, cheese, things that are also pumped with, you want to be, if you are having any kind of like dairy products, or you're looking at cutting down on that, it's usually a lot of these products have got a lot of hormones pumped into them already through the animals. So we want to look at like an organic route with our dairy products, but we also want to cut down on the amount of butter, cheese, plant-based oils and stuff that we have. And trans fats, that is Jamie Oliver's least favorite. That's the ones where it's your fried food. They are the liquid oil that then gets converted to solid fat. So yeah, fried food, ultra processed food, things that you know that you shouldn't be eating. Now, the 2 healthy fats that we want to incorporate in most meals, definitely every single day, and you need to start looking at if these are in your diet or not in your diet, are our monosaturated fats and our polyunsaturated fats. So this is our healthy fats that you find in olive oil, avocado, nuts, seeds, chickpeas, and polyunsaturated is your omega-3 and omega-6, which as females is great for reducing inflammation in the body, for males as well, but great for reducing inflammation in the body. So omega-3, omega-6, you can get that from your fatty fish, you can get that from your seeds. You want to be incorporating that in to your diet, or looking at a supplement to do that if you don't like salmon, you don't like mackerel, etc. And then this is our calorie equation. So you've probably heard calories in versus calories out. As females, we need to look way beyond this. So it's really easy to say, right, I need to expend more energy than I eat, or I to lose weight, or I need to eat. Yeah, I need to eat less than I expend to lose weight, and then vice versa. This is something you'll hear from PTs. This is something you'll hear online. It's really easy to say, but we need to look so beyond that into our nutrition, into our supplementation. You can have, I don't know, you could have 10 bags of Wotsits in your day and be under your calories and be in a deficit, but you're not getting the nutrition, you're not getting the protein, and you're not getting the healthy fats that you need for your hormones to be regulated and the main bodily functions to occur and to be optimally performing. So it's something that you need to definitely look at if you want to be losing weight or gaining weight, but it needs to go way beyond that. And we actually go in to discuss that a little bit further at the end with nutritional strategies. So we'll speak about that then. Right, cool. Understanding hormones. Let me just close this down.
So we're getting stuck in with the hormones now. I had a brief introduction there in terms of nutrition, which is pretty essential in regarding what we're going to be speaking about in terms of diet considerations, nutritional considerations and strategies, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to get stuck in with the nitty-gritty of hormones. Now, there are wads of hormones throughout the bodies. We're going to limit those, the ones that we're talking about, to the ones that are a little bit more relevant to this topic. But I think hormones are almost spoken about like they're this evil dictator that kind of just rules and controls how we live our life. And as much as they do have a huge influence in terms of how we think, feel, act, react, behave, that kind of thing, we have more control over them than what is definitely let on. Okay. So I guess the fancy or the wanky terminology for what hormones actually are is they are a chemical substance found within the body that basically act as messengers. So these chemical substance, i.e. hormones, can rise, fall, which then triggers a series of events leading to short-term or long-term effects in the body. So a prime example of that would be something like we become stressed out or frustrated with a certain situation or something that's happened in our life. Cortisol levels go up. That then leads to a series of events within the body that then leads to increased body temperature, sweating, maybe even sometimes shaking. So that would be an example of a short-term effect. An example of something long-term would be something a little bit more grim, I guess. Some of the hormonal imbalances that we're going to be talking about, something like diabetes or even osteoporosis would be a prime example, actually. Estrogen being the main driver for joint lubrication, even though we associate old age with osteoporosis because that is something that can happen with brittle bones, etc. As we get older, this applies for both men and women. Estrogen comes down, joint lubrication comes down with it, meaning that joint health is declining. So yeah, there's both long-term and short-term effects there from those hormonal sort of changes. Now, obviously, there's hormones sort of found everywhere in the body, produced brain, ovaries, testes, if you're a male, the pancreas, different thyroids or parathyroid glands. The 5 main ones that we're going to be talking about is estrogen, which if you haven't heard about that, I'll be shocked. But estrogen is the main sexual hormone used by women to develop their sexual characteristics and basically help their reproductive organs just stay on top of things, okay? There are 3 forms of estrogen. Estradiol, which is when you hear someone talk about estrogen, like this is usually typically what they're going to be talking about. It's the main form of estrogen that provides most of the bodily functions within women especially. There's estriol, it sounds like I'm talking German there, but that is a form of estrogen that's used during pregnancy, sorry. And then there's estrone, which is the only form of estrogen that's naturally produced after menopause. There's progesterone, which is like, I guess the way you could sort of look at progesterone, it's almost like estrogen's stoner sibling. It's just a little bit more sort of like a chilled, calm, tranquil version of it. So when we think about estrogen, we think of like high mood, high energy, high sex drive, just general bad bitch attitude and mentality. And then we've got progesterone, which is a little bit more like chilled, relaxed, deflated. As I said, it's like estrogen, as Bailey's what brilliantly put at one point, it's like the Beyonce hormone.
Yeah, you want to go out, you want to party, you feel good, you feel sexy. Progesterone's like, go to bed, stay inside.
Chill out, chill out. And then we have testosterone as well, which, as much as that is seen as the male main sex hormone, it does play a vital role within the female body as well, not just in terms of keeping on top of menstrual, vaginal health and sex drive libido, but also just playing a role in terms of maintaining bone and muscle mass and joint health as well on top of that. Then we have FSH, sorry, which stands for follicle stimulating hormone. This basically is a hormone that is used to give your ovaries a little bit of a kick up the arse at the start of your cycle to start preparing more eggs. And then we have LH, which is luteinizing hormone. And this is basically used after FSH in the second stage of your cycle to trigger a series of events in your body to prepare it for, basically to prepare it to use those eggs. So it's kind of, when that triggers, it's basically preparing your body for ovulation. Right, so that ties us in nicely to the beginning of the menstrual cycle. So what we're going to do here is break this down into the 4 stages, kind of give you a basic idea of what's going on in each stage, certain symptoms that you may or may not experience in each phase. And I know there's nothing more patronizing than a 28-year-old male telling a female what she should be experiencing on her period. But rather than me just saying, right, this is what you're going to be feeling, I'm going to say, right, if this is what you're experiencing, I'm going to explain what's going on within your body to trigger that symptom. So basically, at the start of your menstrual cycle, this is day one. This is day dot. The first day of your period, things have restarted, just refreshed. And I think that's like a very sort of like healthy way of looking at your period. When typically, from my experience, any listening to women talk about their period, it's associated with like just feeling like crap. It's spoken about in a very negative tone, when it is something it's obviously natural, but it's your body's refreshing and restarting. Okay, so what's happened here is progesterone and estrogen have come down, and your body has basically said, right, we've got all these unfertilized eggs that didn't get used in a previous cycle, so we're just going to dispose of them, hence your period. And that's what's happening there with that bleed. It's disposing all the unfertilized eggs. FSH, which you spoke about just there, basically then starts to increase. And what's happening here is it gives your ovaries a bit of kick up the arse, saying like, right, okay, we got rid of all the eggs that we've not used. We need a new batch, so get to it. And that's basically what happens there. And then that takes us on to the symptoms there. So symptoms with menstruation, again, you don't need me to tell you this, but in terms of abdominal cramps, what's happening within the body to cause this is your uterus is contracting. So if you think about contracting a muscle, like if you were to tense your arm, your leg, something like that, if you were to do it hard enough and long enough, you might get some form of cramp. But if you make a fist and squeeze it as tightly as you can, as hard as you can for about 10 to 15 seconds, that's kind of what's going on within your uterus here. Breakouts, so experiencing some form of acne around the neck and the mouth, the face in general. So the reason for that here is as estrogen and progesterone have come down, so testosterone, sorry, slightly rised, okay? And along with testosterone going up comes along a androgenic side effect. So if we think about men, we're just generally sweaty, spotty freaks. It's because we have an increase in testosterone. As this androgen side effects come along from the increase in testosterone, it produces an oil in the skin, which I can't remember the name of, but it produces this oil in the skin, which then leads to acne and breakouts. Fatigue, headache, and mood swings are all kind of related. As estrogen comes down, your brain's cognitive ability goes with it. So estrogen is basically the main driver for your brain's performance in a cognitive sense. So as estrogen comes down, that brain's cognitive ability goes down with it, meaning that, well, mood is going with the estrogen, but your brain's sort of capacity to keep on top of things is kind of declining as well. And then that ties us into the follicular phase, so the second sort of phase here. Now, this is where you might start to see there's like light at the end of the tunnel. You've come out of that shit phase where mood, energy, everything's a bit crap. Estrogen is now picking back up and you're starting to feel that rise in energy. So as I was mentioning before, as LH, the luteinizing hormone sort of picks back up, it's triggering that series of events and reactions in your body to prepare it for ovulation, to use the eggs that have just been started to get prepared. So yeah, this kind of ties in nicely as it takes you on to ovulation. But some of the symptoms you're going to experience here, as I've just said, pretty much all the good shit: increased energy level, increased sex drive, feeling happier, more positive. Higher pain tolerance. It's not actually a case of you've got higher pain tolerance. It's more the perception of pain has changed itself. So, for example, it's more what if you were to, I don't know, get punched in the arm. It's not the fact that you're feeling that pain and you have a higher tolerance to it. It's more the case of it doesn't feel as sore as it normally would. But yeah, basically what's happening here, sorry, is estrogen is then picking back up and then preparing you for ovulation.
Well, so ovulation, this is when an egg is released and travels down to the uterus. Yeah. Estrogen levels are still high, but they're starting to dip back down. But this is the time, ovulation, people quite often think this is the midpoint of your cycle. When people are trying for children, they think that this is the fertile window, when actually it's that phase before. You got about a five day window there where you're increasing your libido. You've got heightened senses, like we said. I found this really interesting when I was doing research the other day on cycle tracking, which I'm about to speak about, that women around this time have a more heightened sense of smell, taste, and hearing. Now, I haven't ever tracked this, so I haven't noticed it. But this is because obviously you're preparing to have sex, to create a child, the egg's been released, so you're attracted to male pheromones. So your body is giving you those heightened senses to be attracted to the male scent, or it's very it's just like, you know, mammals, but it's obviously evolution is that we have been put here to reproduce. So that I found that really interesting, that was a symptom that some people would get during this time. This is also the time when your basal body temperature should start to increase. So if you are tracking on a natural cycle app, this is the time where you would expect to feel an increase in body temperature, and you'll be able to test this with the thermometer that you do underneath your tongue. This is also a time when, because you've got a surge in both hormones, estrogen and then progesterone's coming in, people can experience mid-month bleeding. So I think this is also really interesting to note, because if anyone has ever had this, it can be quite scary if you get like a mid-month bleed or any kind of spotting. Obviously, if it's for a prolonged period of time, that can be dangerous, but it could just be a surge of hormones, exactly like if you get breast tenderness here, or if you get more, if you've got more energy, it's a symptom. So you can, these hormones surging can also cause you to have an early bleed or a mid-month bleed. We are then going, so this is, like I said, Beyonce hormone, and then as Ross explained, we are starting to wind back down for getting our body preparing for our periods. So this is going into the luteal phase. So both hormones start to drop back down, progesterone levels rise and take over from estrogen. So this is our chilled stoner hormone. So this is why we start to want to wind down. We start to want to stay inside a little bit more. We also, because estrogen controls the our emotion and the serotonin in our brain, when that starts to dip, we start to lose that like feel good feeling, which is also something to note, because this is quite a chunk of our cycle. So when you're starting to feel like maybe a little bit sad, a little bit anxious, it's a hormone taking over. And when you can note that month to month, that's why that's happening to you. I think it's really powerful to be able to like harness and have the knowledge to go, right, this happened to me last month. I felt a bit shitty here. And actually it is my hormones, and give yourself like cut yourself some slack. Because this is also when we lose that feel good feeling, it's when we start to reach for comfort food, and like our cravings are more geared towards sugar and carbs and chocolate and biscuits. And my advice with this one, and me and Ross spoken about this, is I would always tell my clients, try and find something like a higher protein snack or a higher fat snack, or something that's going to keep you fuller for longer. Because at this point, if you, I mean, give in to snacks, I'm everything in moderation. But if you're constantly feeling like, oh, I need to reach for something sugary, I need to reach for something carby, this is where you want to find somewhere to switch some things out. We also want to look at things with like high magnesium here to help PMS symptoms. So mood swings, feeling again anxious, down, also cramps. So having things with like high magnesium, whole foods with high magnesium in them, or supplementing that, which we're going to go on to discuss, is really important as well. And that's it. And then if pregnancy doesn't occur, both progesterone and estrogen fall back down again, and then you're back to day 1 of your cycle. So you're back to the bleed, and we shed the lining of our uterus. So yeah, it's I'm about to go on to speak about cycle tracking, but like having an awareness of this, and like me and Ross said this yesterday, we jumped on a call yesterday. As women, we go through so much of a surge of different hormones in our month, whereas guys, there is a lot that goes on there, but they wake up, testosterone spikes, they start to lose it, they go to bed, the same thing happens day. Whereas we're never going to be the same as our female friend, or the same as our mom, or the same. You are going to be at different parts of your cycle. You're going to be experiencing different things, feeling different ways. And this is why I'm going to go on to speak about cycle tracking and how important this is for just understanding what's going on. Some of you might do this already. Some of you might have absolutely no idea where to start, but cycle tracking is taking your normal cycle, however long that is for you. It can be anything between 1 to 21 days, or 1 up to 35 days for a normal cycle. And every month, just tracking kind of how you feel at every part of that of your month. It could be daily, it could be like every second day, it could be weekly. If a symptom like jumps out at you and you're like, God, I don't feel very great, or my appetite, I'm really hungry now, it's really good to start tracking it. There's loads of apps that you can do this on. So I think there's Flow, Clue. I used to use Stardust, which was really good. I use the Apple one now, and there you can do this like pen and paper, like journal it. If anyone journals, you can write it at the end of your journal. You can get a whole new notebook for this, but just writing down what is happening to you at different parts of your month. So you can look back. If you did this for 3 months, you could look back and start to find patterns as to like, oh, I felt a bit low here. Oh, I felt a bit low here at the same time last month. Okay, it's not me. I'm not feeling depressed. I'm not needing to reach out for help in that way. It is my hormones. Or I'm feeling really hungry at this part of my cycle, which makes sense because it's usually when you're in your luteal phase, your metabolic rate is higher, so you are hungrier. And being able to go, God, and that's like 2 days before my period, I feel really hungry. And allowing yourself to eat, or noticing, for me, every month, and my mum could vouch for this, I will get like super stressed, being like, oh, I've put on weight, I feel really bloated, my jeans don't fit, I feel like, and it's water weight, and I know it is. And it wasn't until I started like tracking things, I was going, right, at the exact same time every month, I am feeling like my jeans don't fit, I'm feeling like my face is puffy, I'm feeling bloated, and they're my symptoms, and they're things that show up all the time. So being able to build a blueprint of your month takes the power back, and we start to being able to, what I like to say is like, you're harnessing your hormones, you know what's going on, because there's so much power in, and knowing as a female what's going on in our body, and knowing from month to month, okay, well, that didn't work in my last month because I hit a half marathon run with my friend in my luteal phase, and I knew that I was going to feel low in energy. So it gives you the opportunity to know what's going on, and also gives you the opportunity to cut yourself some slack, because I think we're so hard on ourselves, and we look at our menstrual cycle as like such a horrible thing to navigate, when actually, I mean, it's amazing what our bodies do. But if you know month to month exactly what's going to happen or close to it, it's a really powerful way of being able to get through it, and look for the nutrition and training to help that, which we're also going to speak about. So yeah, things that you would want to track: appetite, energy, mood, sexual desire, sleep, socializing, and then like any kind of like physical symptoms. So if that's like breast pain, temperature, bloating, etc. Right. Next big topic.
Yeah, big topic. I'm assuming this is why the majority of people are here tonight, understanding hormonal imbalances. Now, as I said before, there's lots of hormonal imbalances throughout the body. We'd be here all week talking about them if we were to go through every single one. So what we've done is chosen 3 of probably the most common ones within the female population. One that's almost used as self-diagnosed quite a lot of the time, and it's sometimes used as a bit of an excuse or a scapegoat for poor weight management. And then we have one that isn't technically an imbalance, but it's something that 100% of women are going to experience at some stage in their life. So logically, it makes more sense to talk about that as well. Now, there is a nice wee quote on the next slide. If a woman's uterus is out of balance, from a Mr. Don Elijah Panty, a man, might I add. He was basically a holistic witch doctor in the late 1800s. And basically, I like this quote, because basically what he's saying here is a woman's uterus is the core of her body. It produces, from a hormonal standpoint especially, it produces the majority of things that are going to have a huge influence on her in terms of how she thinks, feels, behaves, etc., performs, and lives her life. So if that is out of sync, if that is out of whack, she is going to be out of whack also, spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, that kind of thing. So the first
thing as well, this is why like quite often when women do yoga, if you've got really tight hip flexors or anything around that area, when people do like yin yoga, or they start to like release that, a lot of people cry, because we hold a lot of emotion there, because that is the core of us. So if you imagine like that being like a second brain, and that is out of whack, like we're saying, your emotions, everything. It controls everything. So having an understanding of your hormones, but then also having an understanding of like hormonal imbalances is like super important.
So the first one we're going to speak about is endometriosis, which affects 10% of women of reproductive age. So endometriosis is basically it's when the tissue of the endometrium, which is basically the uterus of the womb, the tissue and the cells inside that start to grow outside of it. And this can then not just grow outside the uterus in the womb, but it can also attach to other areas of the body. Not in the sense that it's going to start growing up your body and start attacking you in the brain or the throat or anything, but it can start then attaching itself to the liver, the bladder, any kind of surrounding organs. So when we think of endometriosis, it's we associate it with just pure like pelvic pain. I remember back in like my one-to-one PT days, I would work with some women that had endometriosis, and there'd be days where they had to cancel their session like very last minute. They would have to spend all day in bed. They'd be crippled in pain. And again, this is kind of something that spurred me on to learn a little bit more about it, because as a man, I have it pretty easy. So it only makes sense that I have the responsibility to learn about this. So it just makes more sense to have an understanding. So yeah, endometriosis there, sorry, as much as it is technically untreatable, we don't know what the root cause of it is. When I say we, I don't mean myself and Bailey, I just mean in the whole medical field, I guess. If you go to your GP to get anything about it, I could confidently say they're going to go down one or three routes, in the sense of you'll get put on hormonal birth control in whatever shape or form. You'll get given painkillers, or they might go down, if it's a very severe case, they might go down the route of surgery, whether that's kind of removing that tissue that's grown outside of it or attached itself to organs, or it might be, in the most severe case, hysterectomy, where they remove the uterus altogether. But again, this is one of these things where it's not one size fits all. Some women can live quite happily and contently with endometriosis, and it doesn't cause that much of a negative effect. Some women struggle to get out of bed. So again, it's not the same story for everyone. Going on to PCOS, otherwise known as polycystic ovarian syndrome, which is basically an endocrine and immune disorder where the ovaries don't release eggs at a certain stage as efficiently as they should. And as a result, they start to develop these very small cysts all around them. Because of this as well, it has a negative effect on a female's ability to convert testosterone into estrogen. So from day dot, when a female's born, and as she develops and grows, she actually develops more, or sorry, she has more testosterone in her body than we actually think. It's just what separates men from women in this sort of sense anyway, is that females have the ability to convert that testosterone into estrogen pretty much as soon as it's produced. Whereas someone who has PCOS, not that they don't convert any testosterone into estrogen, but there is a certain amount that just stays as testosterone. As a result, they experience those kind of androgenic side effects I was talking about before as well. So this is where the acne, someone with PCOS might experience pretty bad acne. Anything that kind of male might have quite bad issues with: acne, hair thinning or hair loss, high blood pressure, hair growth in the face or in the body. Also, 50% of women that have PCOS are also insulin resistant, which basically means that their ability to utilize carbohydrates is not as efficient as someone without PCOS. So what I mean by that is, say you have a certain amount of carbohydrates coming in. If you have PCOS, you can only utilize a small percentage of that. And then the rest just gets either stored or converted into sugar, which is what we want. We want to convert carbs into sugar so we can use it as energy. But if you have PCOS, you lack that sort of fundamental part of using it as energy. It then just gets stored as sugar in the blood. Now, this is why someone with PCOS needs to be keeping an eye on their blood sugar, their blood glucose, because if you have too much sugar in that blood over an extended period of time, this is where it can turn into diabetes. So again, not to sound too dim and grim, but with PCOS, you need to be tracking your blood sugar. You also need to be tracking a certain amount of carbohydrates, which we will discuss as well.
Right. So we're going to talk about two hypo and hyperthyroidism here. This is the one that Ross had mentioned earlier. A lot of people use as a scapegoat when they are not losing weight. So people self-diagnose themselves with hypothyroidism. So the thyroid gland is like a small butterfly gland underneath the Adam's apple in your neck. It produces thyroid, and it's used for regulating like our bodily functions. So metabolism, growth, development, our body temperature, our heart rate. Hyper is way like people do not self-diagnose themselves with hyper. Hyper is when the thyroid, our body produces too much thyroid, and the levels elevate and speed up our bodily functions. So this is people that get like rapid weight loss, rapid heart rate, anxiety, irritability, insomnia, fatigue the next day because they've had too much energy at night, muscle weakness, anxiety. So this one, both of these are things that you would need to go see a specialist for. But hypothyroidism is the opposite. So it's when our body slows down. We're not producing enough thyroid. It slows down our bodily function. So this is when people start to get slow metabolism, weight gain, lack of energy, dry skin and nails. Their digestion doesn't work, so they got constipation. So therefore, they're not getting any nutrients through the body. So again, hair, skin, nails, everything's affected. Depression, low moods. Now, all of these symptoms that we speak about under all of these topics, you do not have to take every single one of them to have this condition. So you might look at that, or you might know someone that has got hypothyroidism and go, oh, that is not a symptom, or that. It's completely individual as well. They just, hyper speeds up your bodily functions, hypo slows down your bodily functions. It is due to a lack of iodine in the diet for hypo, and hyper is too much. Irregular menstruation. So this falls under, there's many different issues that fall under irregular menstruation, but a normal cycle for a female is anything between 1 to 21 days or 1 to 35 days. Irregular menstruation would fall out outside of that. So if you were having a period that was too short, if you were having a period that was too long, if you were bleeding more than once a month, aside from the spotting that I spoke about with the hormonal surge, if you were like having a mid-month bleed and that was happening for a couple of days, if you bleed too heavily, so that would be if you have to change your tampon every 1 to 2 hours, if you don't bleed enough, there's irregular menstruation. There's so much that it kind of is a huge category for just not a normal cycle. So this can be due to like stress, under eating, being too lean or too underweight, PCOS, thyroid issues. It could be medication, illness. It could also be weight gain if you're overweight. So there's loads of different reasons for this. We're going to go into like the nutritional support and advice for dealing with it, and supplementation for it. But yeah, it's just pretty much the category of anything out with 21 to 35 day cycle. Right, menopause.
The one that
hot topic.
Yeah, I'm oddly passionate about menopause. Don't ask me. I think it's just because I've had the most exposure working, like from the moment I got into the industry. It's mostly been women of an older age that I work with, so I have quite a bit of exposure with this. Menopause, even though it's not a hormonal imbalance, it's something that obviously all you ladies here tonight are going to experience at some point. The average age that you start becoming perimenopausal, menopausal is between like 40 and 45, but there are cases where you can start becoming perimenopausal like in your 30s. So again, it just depends on the person, I guess, and what kind of state their body's in. But menopause is essentially the process in which your body's reproductive functions just starts coming to an end. So your menstrual cycle starts coming to an end, period starts coming to an end, without getting too, like, I don't know, old school or Neanderthal about it. Like a woman's primary function within her body is, reproduction. So as this comes to an end, all the hormones that sort of come with it start going down. The ovaries are no longer producing eggs, and as a result, they're not producing estrogen, testosterone, progesterone as much as they were before. Due to this, there are several symptoms and experiences that you might go through, may or may not go through when you're perimenopausal and menopausal. So insomnia is due to what I was speaking about before, where estrogen starts to come down, the brain's cognitive ability starts to go with it. So essentially what's happening here is you're getting into bed, you're trying to go to sleep, you're staring at the roof of the ceiling, and your brain's ability to tell your body it's time to turn off and go to sleep is just not there. And so, yeah, as a result, insomnia comes about. Hot flushes and sweats. So this, like, a lot of people complain about sort of night sweats. I've had a lot of people just complain about randomly breaking out in sweats in the middle of the day as well. The way that this has come about is, again, as estrogen comes down, there are slight rises in other hormones, which then trigger your body's thermostat to increase. So then obviously as that thermostat's coming up, your body temperature is increasing. You are then getting hot, flustered, and sweaty as a result. Vaginal dryness, again, the estrogen is not just the main driver for joint lubrication, it's the main driver for lubrication in the vagina as well. So as estrogen is coming down, that lubrication is going along with it, causing the dryness. Low mood swings, anxiety, and problems with memory and concentration. They're kind of, again, interlinked. As I was saying before, estrogen being the main driver for your brain's cognitive ability. So memory and concentration, like that's a pretty key element of estrogen. Low mood, swing, anxiety. I think anxiety is less hormonal and it's more psychological. Low mood and swings, again, estrogen going down, mood, energy levels, positivity, happiness are all kind of like decreasing with it just due to that. Anxiety, I think, is more commonly brought on just due to the sort of stress of everything changing. Like if you think about how your body has been and your experiences throughout the majority of your life in terms of increased sex drive, not being sweaty as fuck during the day, not having insomnia, just being like the polar opposite of what you're experiencing now, you are obviously going to stress about that. You're obviously going to have that on your mind quite consistently. So it makes total sense that anxiety would be brought on due to the stress and the thought process of everything that you are currently going through. Reduced libido, again, estrogen and testosterone are both coming down. Sex drive is declining along with it. So that brings us on to nutritional strategies for hormonal imbalances. So first one being endo. Now, endo's a little bit of a genetic one. Everything that's kind of in here, I'd probably prescribe to just the general person who's whether a male, female, or it's a female who hasn't got endo. Everything in here is kind of based around like reducing a level of inflammation going into the body, removing and cutting down on gluten. So I'm not really a believer in cutting out food groups or items entirely. However, if you're someone who's having 4, 5, 6 meals a day, and each one of those meals have got gluten, let's try and cut that in half. If you can get that down to 1 meal in the day that's got gluten, again, there are plenty of gluten-free options now. Yeah, fair enough, they're not as good, let's be honest, but they still mean that you're not going to be crippled in pain and still have some good food at the same time. The reason being is, again, this is just going to reduce the amount of inflammation that's being brought on in that general abdomen area. Look at your cow's dairy intake. So as much as this is about your digestive tract in terms of cow's dairy is just harder to digest and process, the last thing you need is more sort of that digestive system becoming less efficient and slowing down, causing more pain in that general area when you're already dealing with pain in the abdominal area. Also on top of that, your body's already in a state where hormones are kind of out of whack. There's an imbalance there. The last thing that you need is to be intaking a heap of cow's dairy milk that's being pumped filled with hormones in some farm somewhere. So again, it's not one of these things where you need to cut out entirely, but if you're going to bed every night having a pint of milk, let's try and maybe reduce that by half or just remove it altogether. Almond milk, in my opinion, is very underrated as well. Removing or severely limiting alcohol. So this is something that I would strongly suggest for 9 out of 10 people. Again, not saying that you have to be a social recluse like myself and not go out and have a social life and not enjoy alcohol whatsoever. But if once or twice a week you are smashing a bottle of Pinot Grigio and getting pissed, probably best to cut that down. Either limit, if you're getting pissed like once a week, and when I say pissed, I mean like pissed. If you're doing that once a week, I would definitely cut back on that. If you're having an entire bottle of wine on a Saturday night, let's try and cut that down to a glass. Removing vegetable, seed oils, and ultra processed foods. So first thing, I would swap out vegetable and seed oils and just replace that with extra virgin olive oil. Your body's going to be able to process and digest that a lot more efficiently. It's also a healthier source of unsaturated fats, which is in turn going to help with hormone regulation. Ultra processed foods is pretty self-explanatory. If you can fill the majority of your diet with whole nutrient-dense foods, your digestive system is going to be a little bit more efficient, meaning that there's going to be less general pain in that area. So then we have PCOS. PCOS is a little bit more specific. And as I was saying before when I was talking about PCOS as a whole, I think where a lot of people go wrong with this is their carbohydrate intake. So the first thing you should be doing with PCOS is reducing your carbohydrate intake to 25% of your overall calories. Now, if we take the average person who doesn't track their food, doesn't manage their calories, doesn't pay attention to any of that, the average person is getting 75% of their calories from carbs. So if that average person has got PCOS and they're not aware about any of this, they're already getting 3 times the amount of carbohydrates into their system as what they should be. And again, this is not just me saying like, oh, it's because it's going to cause weight gain or manage your weight. It is going to help with those kind of things. But at the end of the day, it's also going to prevent you from getting diabetes and just general blood sugar. Most importantly, I would say, or not most importantly, but along a side note to that is filling up your diet with high protein and moderate to high unsaturated fats. So again, we all kind of know what protein is. Bailey went through it as well. Unsaturated fats, you'd be looking at that extra virgin olive oil, dark chocolate, avocado, nuts, nut butter. If you can get high protein, moderate to high fats, and then low carbohydrate, like that's how you should be basing your macros if you have PCOS. It's not really nutritional, but addressing stress, again, it is going to help. Your body's already under enough stress. The last thing you need to be doing is giving it more stress, because even though stress is psychological, it does have a physical effect on everything as well. So if you're avoiding, I don't know, domestic duties that need to be done or an awkward conversation, if you're currently in a toxic relationship and you're with someone that you no longer love, address that shit that's bringing extra stress that's unnecessary, because then that is going to help alleviate some of the pain and some of the symptoms.
Right. I think quite a lot of these things are just going to keep coming up with hormonal imbalances and also just general health. So whole foods. What we mean by whole foods as well is things that are grown and like fruit, veg, meat, like things that haven't been processed, things that you're not picking up in the supermarket and they've got a list of 1 million ingredients on the back, like whole food. So that's what we mean by that. So for hypothyroidism, we need to be looking at like an iodine-rich diet and a selenium-rich diet, because this is the reason that your thyroid is underactive. So looking to get iodine-rich food is like your seaweed, eggs, kelp. You can also supplement this. Selenium's like Brazil nuts, shellfish, eggs. Again, on the other hand, hyperthyroidism, we're wanting to limit those things. So we're wanting an iodine and selenium rich diet on hypo, and we want to be reducing that on hyper. We also want to be looking at getting our iron and calcium up with hypothyroidism. And then again, just exactly like we've said, finding a diet that's limiting your ultra processed foods. You're looking at your whole foods, your protein, your fats, your complex carbs, because what we want to be doing is finding a diet that fulfills us and doesn't mean that we are constantly, especially with a low metabolism with hypothyroidism, you don't want to be obviously overeating. You want to be eating a diet that keeps you fuller and satisfied for longer. Hyperthyroidism, so this is moderation of these things. We want to be eating like frequent smaller meals, so we're looking at like not not unintentional weight loss. So with a higher metabolism and a higher appetite as well, you want to be eating maybe smaller, more frequent meals, but limiting the iodine there, so limiting the inflammation. And also with hyperthyroidism, we do not want to be taking in a lot of stimulants. So that's caffeine, that's your alcohol, and that's your sweetener, sugar. So looking to also reduce that as well, which isn't bad for any of us in general. Irregular menstruation. So this is obviously just also follows into our general health when we're talking about nutritional strategies later on. But you want to be looking at if you are, first of all, under eating or eating a balance, or if you're lacking a balanced diet. So what I like to say is, I mean, eat the rainbow, as many colors on your plate as possible. So you want to be eating as much red, green, yellow fruit and veg, getting everything in, because as much as we're going to talk about supplementation and taking supplements for deficiencies, you can get a hell of a lot of your nutrients in from your whole foods. So yeah, are you lacking a balanced diet? Are you lacking like simple nutritional values from your fruit and veg? But mainly looking at if you're eating enough, which is, as a dancer, where I went wrong for so many years. I myself lost my period for the whole time I was a professional dancer, which at the time I did not think was weird. But obviously my body had completely shut down because it just didn't have enough energy to go through that process. And it's not something we were educated on at dance school. It wasn't anything we were kind of like helped with or supported with. It was kind of just normal because we were all going through it. So that for me, under eating, but then also on the other side of that, if you are overeating and you're obese, it is the same thing. You can lose your cycle as well. We want to be looking at cutting down on the amount of like animal fats, salt, and caffeine in our diet with irregular menstruation. Looking to just, again, take down inflammation. So anything that's going to inflame us is going to set our hormones out of whack. So if you are, like Ross said previously, drinking a hell of a lot of alcohol, that can have an effect. It's a stressor. It's going to send our cortisol up. It sends everything out of whack. Caffeine, drinking too much caffeine as well. So just, yeah, looking at things that are going to also support when you're feeling like you've got those cramps, you've got bloating, pain, maybe drinking more water, looking at your salt intake. So yeah, healthy fats and protein, massive as well. And then also getting enough iron in. So when we are, anyone that suffers with irregular menstruation, when you are bleeding too heavily, you will be losing a hell of a lot of iron at the end of your period, or just in general. I think we should be looking at that final bit of the cycle when we go into our menstruation, getting some iron-rich foods in there. So you need to be looking at spinach, red meats, eggs, like things that are nuts, things that are going to support you and support your hormones, and then in turn your energy. Iron and vitamin C, and then also keeping active. This is a big one. It doesn't have to be that when you are feeling like you've got stomach cramps, or you're feeling low, or you're on your period. Ross is going to go into this in a bit as well, because it's a bit of a hot topic with influencers at the moment, and we kind of want to, we want to discuss that it's individual to you, but keeping active is one of the most important things you can do to keep everything going. You can reduce the feeling of menstrual cramps by doing general exercise and moving your body. I'm not telling you to do a HIIT class, but if you do yoga, or you go for a walk, or you do Pilates, it can actually help. And it helps our hormones as well, and it helps our bodily functions. Exercise is like so important to keep doing. Right, menopause.
So I think the biggest bit of advice for someone that's perimenopausal or menopausal when it comes to their diet is just start eating some damn protein. Women in general don't eat enough protein. And the older you get, and this bit's relevant to both men and women. The older that you get, the more protein you actually need. So the older that you get, your bone mass, muscle mass, joint health in general is all now declining. As a result, unless you want to just fade away and become very brittle and feeble, you need to be getting in a higher amount of protein than what you've been getting in your previous years. And statistically speaking, women in the previous years don't even get enough protein in that general age. So if you are getting to the point in that stage of your life where you're perimenopausal or you're menopausal and you're not arsed about weight training, strength training, or your body composition or anything like that, you just want to stay healthy and able and not, as I said, waste away, you should be looking at 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per lean body mass. And then if you are someone that is strength training, weight training, you do care about your body composition and being strong and maintaining any kind of lean muscle mass that you've built in your life, you'd be looking at 1.8 to 2 grams of protein per kilo of lean body mass. If you can get a little bit more, fantastic. Notice how I said lean body mass as well. So again, if you're someone who is heavily overweight or obese, I don't know, an extreme case, if you weighed like 130 kilos, don't go away and start eating 260 grams of protein, but just take a rough guesstimate of what your weight would be if you're lean, and then, yeah, 2 grams per kilo of that. Fiber. So digestion is something that rapidly declines as well during menopause. And the number one way that we can just improve that and keep on top of that and not become backed up and bloated and constipated. I say I don't know why I said that because I'm not involved in this really, but it's just getting in more fiber through fruit and veg. Now, I'm a big advocate on just getting in as much fruit as possible. If you can't get it in every meal, try to get it in like as frequently as you possibly can. You should be getting in a source of veg and or fruit with each of your meals. This applies to everyone. And I'm a big advocate of throwing in as much bananas, like berries, apples, pineapple, mango, especially for digestion or ace. But yeah, especially at that age where your bone mass is declining, muscle mass is declining, you want to be getting in higher protein, again, from various different sources, and definitely getting in more fiber. So your bowel movements, basically, lack of a better phrase and no pun intended, go to shit. And prioritizing movement, sleep, and good diet. So good diet is pretty self-explanatory. I just explained that. Prioritizing movement, basically because as we get older, we're not aware of, like, subconsciously we stop moving as much. And it's even the things like shivering, fidgeting, spontaneously getting up to, I don't know, turn the telly off or whatever it might be. These things all decline as we get older. And the amount of sort of the distance covered in, say, 30 minutes of walking when you're 20, 30, 40 is a hell of a lot more than the distance covered in a 30-minute walk when you're like 50, 60, 70, et cetera, et cetera. So rather than saying like getting a 30-minute walk at this point, movement definitely should be getting tracked, because yeah, fair enough, like a step, you're going to use more energy walking when you're younger than you are when you're older, but 8K steps is always going to be 8K steps, give or take. So at that point, you should definitely be making a point to track your movement and actually stay consistent with as well. Sleep, as much as you might be suffering from insomnia, do everything within your power to actually make sure that you're going to bed at the same time, you're waking up at the same time, your sleep environment is peaceful, positive, healthy, and you're not, I don't know, blaring, like, you're not having caffeine basically at stupid o'clock in the evening, you're not blaring rock music before going to bed, and you're that hour before you do go to sleep is just spent winding down, relaxing, not doing anything that actually requires any kind of brain power. Just because if you're already battling something that's ruining your sleep, why you should be trying to do everything you can in your power to make that better. Again, this is going to help with everything: quality of life, mood, energy levels, mental clarity, focus, all the good shit that just contributes towards you being a healthier, happier, more positive human being. Amino acids. So these are required to repair muscle, especially at this age. It's pretty essential. Now, if you're already following a high protein diet and you're getting it from various different sources, it's not something you need to stress about. Rather than just following like a bodybuilder diet and eating chicken breast 5 times a day, if you get your protein from different sources, you'll be hitting these amino acid profiles. Melatonin itself, I wouldn't recommend unless you're really struggling with sleep. If you're only getting like a couple of hours and this is happening consistently night after night, you can look at using melatonin, but it can become addictive and you can become dependent on it. HRT is, I'm going to try and keep this short and sweet because it's something I can speak about all day. HRT is something that's massively underlooked, and it's because it's vastly under researched and there's not a lot of information and knowledge out there. HRT is hormone replacement therapy. So when you're menopausal and all your hormones come down, it's something that I think up until recent years has just been accepted and seen as it is what it is. The reality is, like, quality of life for women that are menopausal is not great in 9 out of 10 cases. Again, this is not one of those, like, it's not one size fits all, but with HRT, it kind of puts you back on level playing fields where you can supplement whatever hormone is declining rapidly with a little bit of synthetic hormone replacement therapy to, again, improve that quality of life and the other areas that are maybe lagging. If you are in a position where you can go down a specialist route, I would definitely recommend that. As much as, like, yeah, NHS is great, GP is great. Obviously, there's a backlog there. It will take a while, and they're a bit generic with their HRT as well in that sense, in terms of you might have a female who's got low estrogen, you might have a female who's got low testosterone. They will probably, the high chances they might be given that the same type of HRT. Whereas if you are in a position where you can go to a specialist, you'll be seen a hell of a lot quicker, and you'll work very closely with someone who will make sure that the HRT you're given and put on is the right one for you. But yeah, if your quality of life will drastically improve with HRT.
Well, right. So I don't know if you can actually see all of this, but what we're going to do is send like this slideshow out anyway. But this is the main supplementation that we think you need for the main hormonal imbalances. So the top one is PCOS, and we've got hyperthyroid there as well. Now, I'm not going to go into every single one of these because we're actually already going over time. But like we said in the disclaimer, all the above is guidance from us, but please seek professional help if you think you fall under any of these categories. So I'm just going to speak about the standard daily ones that I think all females should take. So that is magnesium, #1 key. If you can take anything away from this webinar tonight, it's supplement magnesium as a female. It is huge. It helps alleviate our PMS, our cramps, our energy levels. It helps reduce our cortisol levels. It helps our heart health. I ran out of magnesium. I was taking magnesium and then ran out of it. And it was the one supplement that I noticed had completely changed my mood and energy when I hadn't been taking it for a couple of weeks. So it's not until you sometimes take something out of your wellness routine that you notice, oh, actually, I really do need that. And magnesium was definitely the big one for me, where I was like, I need to order this, bulk order this, and I have it on a subscription now, so I'm never without it. Vitamin D, huge. We do not get enough vitamin D in our lives. Even people that live in countries where they are exposed to lots of vitamin D will have deficiencies. We do not get enough of it. So getting a supplement in vitamin D for our heart health, our reproductive health, if you're looking to have kids, our bone health, just functioning in general. And then my passion at the moment is looking into gut health and making sure that we have a probiotic in our diet. So a daily biotic that you take that will look after the healthy bacteria in your gut. This could be another webinar, gut health. It goes hand in hand with hormonal imbalances. If your gut's angry, if your gut is inflamed, which could be due to many things, it is going to also throw off your hormones. So wanting to make sure that we are keeping our cortisol levels low and our gut bacteria good, instead of introducing the bad bacteria in there, because our gut has a direct impact on our brain. There's a gut-brain axis there. So we want to make sure that we're getting probiotic, prebiotic in whole foods. You can get that in prebiotic, you can get that in with your bananas, Greek yogurt. Probiotic is fermented foods, your kimchi, kombucha, sauerkraut. You can look them up and you can get them in through Whole Foods, but also having a biotic tablet that you trust is huge as well. And then iron as well. Iron is huge if you struggle with, like I said before, heavy bleeding or your period, you just feel low in energy, supplementing whole food, getting an iron-rich diet, but also maybe looking at an iron supplement as well if you are still lacking in energy. Right. I left Ross to this one because he's going to pin male against female, but yeah, it's training considerations between the two genders.
I think I apologize if there's any males in here because you're a way to get roasted, but we wanted this slide to basically be aimed around not comparing yourself to males in terms of like a performance or physique kind of standpoint. Um, the irony here is we've kind of just done half of that for you. Um, Males basically get born a step ahead in terms of we're born with more muscle mass, we're born with more of like a greater structure. We have a higher and greater chance of generating force, power, meaning that we're generally stronger. We have a stronger anaerobic system. So if you think things like sprinting and powerlifting, we're just generally better performers in that. The side note to that is we're just generally little wimps in comparison to women within training, though. Women and females in general, you have a higher pain tolerance, a better sort of tolerance towards volume, meaning that if me and Bailey were to start following the same training program and it had us training like legs 2 or 3 times a week, we train legs on the Monday and I would still be fucked until the Saturday, whereas Bailey would probably train them 3 times a week and be good to go for the next week. So that recovery capability is way higher within women. Obviously, you have a higher pain tolerance. Like I would like to think so, considering like one of the main sort of reproductive sort of functions of a female is like it's pretty necessary there. You're just generally better performers in endurance-based sports, and there's no real data or research or science, anything that backs this up. But in regards to training and exercise and all this kind of this side of things, you just get on with it better. That you whinge and complain a hell of a lot less than we men do. You seem a lot more on the ball. You just get shit done. Whereas men have a tendency to be like, I don't know, just fucking make up excuses and bitch and moan. But yeah, I think obviously women need more in terms of a physique standpoint as well. Men are leaner. We do have more muscle mass. We can stay leaner. We can generally not stay on top of things as much regarding our nutrition and training and still hold less body fat. Whereas with women, if you want to have like a pretty lean physique, you need to sacrifice a lot. You need to be a lot more on the ball. And the reason being is because you need that body fat in order to just maintain healthy bodily functions, i.e. your cycle, your period. So when Bailey was talking about irregular periods regarding like body fat levels or under eating and overeating, sorry, because that body fat, which is called adipose tissue, helps with the conversion of estrogen. So if you're someone who's drastically underweight and you don't have much body fat on your frame, that you have an insufficient amount of adipose tissue, meaning you have an insufficient amount of estrogen being converted and produced, meaning that regulation of your period is going to be off. On the flip side, if you're someone who's heavily overweight and you've got a high amount of body fat, you've got a wad of estrogen coming in, you've got too much, meaning that regulation of your period is still going to be off. So there is a fine line where if you're a female who's looking for like visible abs and maybe not taking it as far as like a competitive bodybuilder, but you need to realize that that's much more difficult and you would need to sacrifice a hell of a lot more than a male would. And I guess the reason why I'm saying this is because myself and Bailey have worked with women where there's a lot of comparison with maybe their male partner or just other men in the gym, whoever it might be. And the comparison's really not fair in terms of a performance standpoint or a physique standpoint, because we're built for different things. And men have got a bit of a head start anyway. So yeah, just be proud of the fact that you can handle more pain, you can handle more volume, you're better at training than us, and you just get on with shit a hell of a lot more. And don't compare yourself to men in any form or sense of your physique or your training.
Don't chase down a 6-pack because we have to sacrifice a hell of a lot to get it, and it's not worth it. You lose so much fun, so much food, social plans. I've been there. It's not, and also I spoke to Ross about this yesterday. We've actually had like quite a few good chats about it, male female comparison. And I work in a heavily female dominated gym. Whereas if I was trying to keep up with half of the boys that I work with, who are amazing and train hard, but if I was to try and keep up with them in their general strength and output, it is just physically impossible. I'd be breaking myself. And when I first started working there, I tried to keep up, because I was like, well, I'm strong, I'm a personal trainer, I'm a coach, I can do it. And it's just not physically possible because of what we go through, and also because of our cycle and everything that's going on. We are going to speak about this in a second, about like training considerations around your cycle, but it is something we massively need to consider, and we need that fat in our body. That six pack that you can achieve is not sustainable. It's not healthy to be down at that weight, and it's not fun to be down at that weight. So comparing yourself to maybe like your partner who is more shredded, is, yeah, we need to cut ourselves some slack and be proud that of what our bodies can do, and why our bodies need that. So yeah, right.
So there's a lot of text there. I'm going to try and summarize it and just dumb it down a little bit. But you might see a lot of sort of, I guess, content on social media. It seems to be a bit of a hot topic at the moment, but basically a lot of content being popped out there saying that on a specific point of your cycle, you need to be doing a specific style of training. So that might be something like heavy hitting, high intensity strength training during ovulation, and then backing off and doing Pilates towards the end of your cycle at the very start. The reality is, again, this is, you don't need me to tell you this, but the menstrual cycle isn't one size fits all. There are going to be some women at the end of the cycle that need to take their foot off the gas, maybe keep a few reps in the tank, reduce their energy, reduce their intensity, reduce their volume, maybe even take a couple of rest days. Whereas there's going to be some women that can just go full send it and go 100%. It's not the same rules don't apply for every single female. So I think I'm not a big fan of the expression like listen to your body, but there's a truth element towards this in this circumstance. If you're getting towards a certain point of your cycle and you feel absolutely done in, where you're in lots of pain, you're dragging your heels, you feel run down, you would benefit massively from just taking that few extra rest days if you actually need it. You would benefit massively from maybe just doing a little bit of a devolume where you reduce the amount of, say, sets that you're doing per exercise, or the level of intensity you're putting into your sessions. There's, in my opinion, in very rare cases, there's no need to be taking a full week off of training. There's definitely no need to be doing a different style of training for every week of your cycle. But again, this is one of those things where listen to your body. If you get towards the end of your cycle and you're like, I can go 110%, go for it. But if you need to back off that a little bit and take your foot off the gas, then do so. And again, during your period as well, if you need a little bit more food, when I say a little bit more, I mean like a few hundred calories, give your body that food. If you're absolutely ravenous and you're absolutely starving and you're maybe just that little bit of food focused, you can benefit from giving yourself that little bit more food from nutrient dense sources. As we were saying before, high protein, high fats. Fats will slow down your digestion as well. So again, that will stop you from craving sugary shit. But yeah, don't see, if you see a video or some kind of content and someone saying you need to be doing this at this stage or this week of your cycle, it's not said, it's inaccurate. Just do what you enjoy, do what you love the most, and listen to how your body's feeling and kind of work around that.
This is where cycle tracking fits in massively. If you can see from month to month where your energy's dipping a little bit, then that's your response to your training, not what an influencer's telling you online to do. Oh, I'm in my luteal phase, I must like do yin yoga. That do what feels good for you. You might whack out a PB. So cycle tracking is like hugely important there. Right. Diet considerations. Literally just gonna briefly recap everything that we've spoken about, because we've kind of covered it all. But general health for hormones, we want to be eating the rainbow, a diet full of whole foods, full of fiber, things that are going to keep you fuller for longer. Like we said, our healthy fats. We need our protein for repairing and building muscle and recovery, and also vitamin absorption, regulating our hormones. Omega-3 and 6, huge, get that in for its anti-inflammatory properties. Fiber for our gut health, and then making sure that we can digest things and absorb nutrients. Swapping your simple sugar carbs out for complex carbs. Cravings, when you start to crave those high sugar things, like I said, swapping that out for something that's a healthy fat, a protein, and looking to get some iron in. We want to look at adequate sleep as well. We spoke about this, hydration, and keeping your exercise regular. So diet considerations, and then also just some general considerations there. But hydration, we haven't spoken about a lot, but there is absolutely, I'm the worst for this. Like, I'm going to say this, but I am actually the worst for this. Drinking water, we need it just as much as food, as fuel, for our brain function, to keep our cells healthy, to keep our hormones happy, to keep our gut happy. So hydration as well, making sure you get that in, like obviously 3 liters a day. That's I probably average under a liter. I'm useless. I need to listen to my own advice, but hydration is key. And then monitoring your stress as well. So cortisol, high cortisol levels will lead to all of these things that we've spoken about. And we just want to take inflammation down, really, as females. We've got a lot that we're dealing with in our bodies. So if we can take inflammation, cortisol, blood sugar levels down by having a diet that's rich in nutrients, whole foods, healthy fats and protein, you're giving yourself the best optimal start for your training and just general life as well. Right, this is our this is Ross's, actually. I'm not going to take credit for this.
Everything very aesthetically pleasing because Bailey's put together, and then I, like a 5-year-old who got let loose with Crayola, has put this together. Basically what this is here is, myself and Bailey agreed that 2 of the main sort of complaints that we hear that get related to sort of hormonal regulation, whatever it might be, is just consistent low energy or poor metabolic function, which in simple terms is like struggling to lose weight. So what this is basically here is 2 avenues that you can go to look at both of them. And they are pretty self-explanatory, but they're something that I definitely feel that a lot of people just ignore. So if we're to look at consistent low energy, and this is something that you experience or suffer from, 9 times out of 10 is going to be down to crap sleep quality or quantity. Okay, so going through the sort of chain of like, how do we improve that? So first off, do you have a bedtime? Now, we're all adults here, but we still need a bedtime. We still need a consistent bedtime. We still need a consistent wake up time as well. Now, you should be aiming for about 7 to 9 hours of like uninterrupted sleep. I'm very much aware that sometimes that's just not possible. Like, we have, not we, but people have children, people have other responsibilities and commitments. I get that. But in order to get like high quality sleep, that is what we should be aiming for. So first things first, do you have a bedtime? If not, set one and set a wake up time and stay consistent with it. Okay, if that's not fixed the problem, look at your caffeine intake and stimulant timing. Okay, so the last moment, or sorry, the last time of day that you should be taking any form of like caffeine or stimulants is 2 p.m. Anything after that, you fucked it. Now, I know plenty of people that say they can have like a cup of coffee at 5 in the evening and fall asleep. Like, I've been there myself when I was younger, and I used to brag about it. The reality is, the quality of sleep itself is rubbish. Okay, you might be able to fall asleep, but the quality is crap. So cut off stimulants by 2 p.m. If that's fixed the problem, ace, stick with it. If not, the last thing you should be doing is checking your sleep environment. Okay, and what I mean by that is, the place that you're sleeping in should be peaceful. It should be cover sort of 3 basics in terms of sight, smell, and temperature. So sight, make sure that it's not an absolute mess. Your bedroom or wherever you're sleeping doesn't look like a bomb has hit it. Smell, so it's a bit of a grim one, but make sure that it just doesn't stink. You know, open a window, spray some like lavender spray, or get a diffuser, light a candle, whatever it might be. And then temperature as well. Now, I realize that I'm speaking to a lot of women right now, and you are all notorious for being freezing all of the time, whereas I'm the polar opposite, where I'm just a sweaty mess 24/7. So in terms of like room temperature, is down to what suits you best, okay? Making sure that, not just saying like it's room temperature, but if you're someone who is roasting and wakes up during the night, try and make sure that your room's a little bit cooler, open a window, whatever it might be. Again, if you're someone who's freezing, like put on the heating or close the window, whatever it might be, wear something to bed, whatever's comfortable for you. And again, if you are covering each of those basics and you're staying consistent with it, I can quite confidently say your sleep, your energy, sorry, will improve from that. If we're going into poor metabolic function, i.e. struggling to lose weight, again, this is a bit of a no-brainer, and I'm going to try and not sound patronizing, but the first thing you should be addressing is, right, are you even managing the calories that are being consumed? So are your calories being controlled? I.e., are you tracking how much, not just food you're eating, but how much calories you're actually consuming? So that means food, it means sauces, it means oils, butters, snacking, grazing, takeaway, alcohol, whatever it might be, anything that's actually being consumed, is it being tracked? No? Cool. Well, start tracking it, put yourself in a deficit. If it is, and you are losing weight, but it's slowly, you can either make that calorie deficit greater, or you can just accept the fact that it's going to take a while. Losing 0.5 to 1% of your overall body weight each week is ace. That's totally fine. Also realizing that if you're someone who is heavily overweight and you have a high amount of body fat to lose, you've gotten there by spending an extended period of time and a large portion of your life getting to there. You're not going to be able to undo that in a matter of a couple of months, okay? So just accepting the fact that it is going to be, if you've got a lot of weight to lose, it's going to be a slow and steady process at the same time. If you are losing the weight when you don't overeat, I mean, it's a bit of a no-brainer, stop overeating. And if you're not losing weight and you can quite confidently say 100%, you are in a calorie deficit, everything's being managed, everything's being tracked, controlled, you are in that deficit, you're still not losing weight, that's when you would go to the last resort of getting your blood work done. Okay. Now, you could go to the GP. I wouldn't recommend it. Like there's places like Medichecks, and they're pretty affordable and they're pretty rapid as well. I use a place called Evo Labs, but they're a little bit more pricey just because you get like the full panel. Something like Medichecks, I think you pay like 80 quid and you get everything that you need to know. You can even pay for a consultation with a doctor where they'll run you through everything. They'll say, right, this is what's low, this is what's high, this is what you need to do in order to fix that. But that is definitely, in my opinion, a last resort. And again, if it's something where you generally feel there's a hormonal issue there that's stopping you from losing weight or it's having an effect on your metabolism, whatever it might be, then if that's a serious stress and a serious issue for you, you should be looking at getting your blood work done because that's then going to be that first positive step towards fixing it.
In London, just a quick one. In London, the lab, there's quite a few Randocs in London for anyone that's down here, any of my clients or anyone watching. They're really quick, really reasonably priced, and they give you the results within 24 hours. So if that is something that you are concerned about, it's not that costly. It's very easy to go, and they're great. It's pretty a quick system. So it's worth getting checked, like we said, if you are unsure.
Awesome. Yeah. And apologies again for the wee child's drawing there. That's all I had to say. Awesome. So I think that was the last slide. That then takes us on the wee Q&A. Thanks to everyone that has stuck along up until this point. We realized that we went a good bit over it. It's been like an hour and a half, but we're going to like set aside 10 to 15 minutes just for you to fire any questions our way. If you want to unmute yourself and ask it, if you want to put it into the chat box, fire away. You can pick our brains. Yeah.
Also, feel free if anyone needs to drop off. We did go over, so if anyone needs to leave, we're not going to be offended. You can drop off now. So, chat. Do we get one? Daily dose of magnesium. So that is 2 tablets, which amounts to. I'd have to actually check for you, Vanda, because I don't want to give you the wrong quantities. But it's 2 tablets a day. And I use the magnesium glycinamide. Let me find out for you, and then I will send it across. But yeah, we need because magnesium will be within a multivit as well. But we need a hell of a lot more of than what is in a multivitamin. I don't always recommend a multivit for. I mean, if you're not taking anything, great, you're getting some nutrients in from all of your supplements, but magnesium we need to be taking. I can actually send to everyone. I'll get Ross to send it in an email, the one that I use, because I've spent quite a few years trying to kind of trialing them out, and this is the one that I feel like gives me the best results. But yeah, it's 2 tablets a day, which is pretty strong. I want to say 1,000, but I'll triple check for you. Right. Brilliant. Any more questions? any snack protein packed and have iron. So I would say protein packed snacks that you can like take on the go. We want to again be looking at like something that's quite whole food, like as rogue as it is, boiled eggs are actually great. You know, when Pratt do the little pots that are boiled eggs with spinach, if you can hack that, anything with like your cottage cheese, your Greek yogurt, getting that in, your nuts, Brazil nuts, walnuts, seeds, what else? Any, Ross?
Protein snacks.
Yeah, any protein snacks with iron as well, iron rich.
I'm not really a protein snack kind of guy. The only protein snack that I would use is like a protein shake. Iron,
Really?
yeah.
Interesting.
Iron itself, I would always try and recommend from getting from whole nutrient dense foods. This is why, like, more and more women are kind of coming out as iron deficient, is because it's typically women that follow like a veggie and a vegan diet. It's also women that need twice as amount of iron as men do, simply through losing blood during your period. But if you can get various different sources of protein in, dark leafy greens, nuts, beans, through whole food, that's going to be containing iron. In terms of protein snacks that contain iron, I don't think there will be that many, because those kind of things are processed and don't have that many micronutrients in them.
Right.
Various protein sources in a supplement and you'd be good to go.
Any idea additional protein required to aid repair of broken bone or tissue? Ross?
Yes, it would definitely help. In terms of how much, we need to know exactly your weight, your height, your body composition, etc., the actual severity of the injury itself. Again, if you're getting in that 1.8 to 2 grams of lean body mass, like you'll be good to go. But it would 100% help for sure.
Yeah. Probiotic, I work alongside a company called 4-5, which I used their products for many, many years before I started working as an ambassador with them. They are two ex-rugby players that are they run a wellness and supplement company together, and it's the only biotic that I found that didn't actually give me bloating and gut and pain. Because I think quite often when you're trying, your body's getting used to biotics, definitely in the form of like fermented food, you really need to slowly introduce that into your diet. Don't come off this webinar and go, Bailey said gut health, I need to eat fermented foods, I need biotic. Your stomach will blow up. You will be in excruciating pain. So slowly introducing these things, kombucha, kefir, kimchi, fermented sauerkraut, and a biotic tablet. I would say try the biotic tablet first and then introduce the fermented food, and then you'll be able to see if that tablet works for you and your stomach before you try the foods out. And then slowly introduce everything in, because it is, yeah, so important. And I mean, maybe I will do a gut health webinar. I would if anyone would be keen to join. I'm super passionate about it at the moment. I think it's another thing that we are undereducated on in terms of just how important it is to maintain a healthy gut, and how much that has an impact on our brain and our mental health, as well as like physical symptoms.
You want me to take that
right,
one?
this one? Yeah, menopause.
I have endo and on a forced menopause treatment. Any tips there on how to base training around it, etc.? Like, as I don't go through the usual cycle, as I haven't had a period for 5 months. I take a 3-month injection, which puts my ovaries to sleep, and take tiboline, every day, which is a replacement hormone. Sorry, long question. Jesse, I feel like I need way more context here. I think I know who you are. Did you, please correct me if I'm wrong here, but did you just compete? In terms of how to base your training around it, yes, that's me. What I will do is I will give you a message on Instagram after this, because I'd like a little bit more context before I just giving you absolute nonsense advice here. In terms of how to base your training around it, yeah, okay, never mind. I'll stop waffling there. I'll give you a message after we're done on here.
Hormone Debbie, I will tell you this again and again and again. Free Soul Protein. If any lady, again, this is another company that I loved and used and then went into working with because there's absolutely zero junk in any of their proteins. Quite often, the ones that are cheaper and the ones that are like, I don't want to slate brands on here, but if anyone uses them, but like the bigger brands that have more sweeteners and added stuff in them, more ingredients in the back, they are going to send for us, for guys, okay, cool, use whatever protein powder you want. It doesn't really make that much of a difference. For us, inflammation wise and hormonally, we want to be looking at things that are a little bit more natural, and I've got anti-inflammatory ingredients in them, so like the turmeric, the cinnamon, that kind of thing. So Free Soul, if anyone is struggling with their supplements, have a look on their website, have a look on their blog. I'm not going to make any money off of this. This is not why I'm plugging it. But even their blog's got a hell of a lot of information on like female wellness and just everything they stand for. So yeah, I would say Free Soul Protein. Even though, Debbie, I think that you just don't like the taste of it. I think that's what the issue is with that one. But that is always going to be the one that I promote. Bro, that's it. All good? Super interesting. Oh.
Thank you, Becca.
Thank you, Becca. Thank you, everyone, actually. It's been like really nice to chat and have you listen to us for an hour and a half. It's a topic that we could go on about forever and ever and ever, but in something that I think not enough people know about, not enough people are educated on, and females were massively underrepresented in so many areas, fitness, nutrition, clinical trials. So if you could have taken anything away from tonight, it's yeah, we're really happy to share our research, our information, and yeah, our passion as well.
Yeah, if anyone has any other questions in the future, please feel free to drop us a DM, I guess. What was it? You're at Bailey Shaw?
Bailey Shaw at oh God, I don't actually even know my own handle. Bailey Shaw / coach or something like that. Oh yeah, some
It's
variation.
like Bailey Shaw. Bailey Shaw.
Bailey Shaw. I don't think there's many of us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Any kind of questions in the future, just drop us a message. But yeah, thank you very much for coming along, guys. And
yeah, hopefully speak to you soon. Thank you so much.